Okay, so right off the top on CBS News 24/7, looking live inside the White House, where Americans wanting to know about the war in Iran may get a chance to hear from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. As soon as those headlines develop from her exchange with reporters in that very room, we have 2 live cameras ready to go to bring you those answers. Battleship sunk. Look at this video coming to our monitors. This video shows what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth calls a major win on the water, as he also promises the U.S. and Israeli air forces will soon have complete control of Iranian skies. Take a listen.
Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it.
So the bottom line from Mr. Hegseth, at the behest of President Trump, the U.S. will be in control and the U.S. will decide when and how this ends. So here's where things stand right now. The U.S. Embassy in Iraq is strongly encouraging U.S. citizens to get out as soon as they safely can do so. They also say expect Israel to launch new strikes in Tehran and also in Lebanon today. Those Lebanon strikes really focused on eliminating the ability of Iranian proxies from launching attacks on Israel. CBS News chief correspondent Matt Gutman picks up the story from Tel Aviv.
Hey, I just want to give you a sense of what we've been seeing just from standing right here. Last night, we saw Tomahawk missiles fired from U.S. warships out in the Mediterranean go over our head nearly simultaneously, an Iranian missile coming in. Hours ago, we had missiles coming in or rockets coming in from Lebanon at the exact same time as an Iranian missile was coming in. There are U.S. refueling tankers that are flying overhead, Israeli warplanes flying towards Iran. From the other side of the Gulf, there are also U.S. warplanes by the many dozens flying. There are drones crisscrossing the Middle East right now. That is how busy and congested this airspace is in terms of this war, which continues to expand. Israel moving into southern Lebanon because of those rockets that we saw. We understand that Israel's response to Hezbollah, the Iranian proxy, is going to be more intense. Right now, you might be hearing in a few more seconds another refueling tanker flying over my head. All of this to say, very busy airspace, and it's one of the reasons that the U.S. has had a hard time, or about nearly 1 million Americans have a hard time getting out of this region, caught in this conflict region. Now, so far, the State Department hasn't been very helpful. They have been telling people, we can't offer you direct help. That is starting to change. General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, has said that they might get people on C-17, very big planes, out of the region on military planes. Secretary of State Rubio has said that they're going to start chartering planes as well. But getting those planes here and then getting them out is going to take coordination and deconfliction because the skies are so very dense with warplanes, not commercial planes. So it might be more of a trickle than a steady stream, as I think many Americans would want. Just want to give you an example of one of the people I've spoken to, a woman who lived not far from here in Tel Aviv, or didn't live, was visiting family, and she had to take a train to a bus, stay overnight near the Egyptian border, cross the Egyptian border, fly from Taba, a town in Egypt, to Athens, then to Munich, then to Chicago to be with her 2-year-old son. And she's 23 weeks pregnant. So many people across the region trying to get out, very frustrated right now. Again, there is a little bit more movement on that, that as this war continues to expand with no let up in sight. Back to you.
Matt Gutman, thank you for that. We are also learning the names of 4 out of the 6 U.S. service members killed in an Iranian strike. They are from the 103rd Command Base in Des Moines, Iowa. They died when that Iranian strike hit a tactical operations center in Kuwait. You're seeing their photos here. 35-year-old Captain Cody Cork, 39-year-old Sergeant First Class Nicole Amour, 42-year-old Sergeant First Class Noah Teichens, and 20-year-old Sergeant Declan Cody. The names of 2 other service members withheld until their families are notified and given 24 hours. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, says their deaths will be avenged. Also this hour, our live cameras are inside the White House, where at any moment, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will take questions. She'll be standing at that podium. You see all of the reporters there with their reporter notepads out. They are awaiting what she has to say about the president's plans and next steps for Iran. Now, while we await that moment, CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro is joining us from Washington. Now, Aaron, any indication from the White House about how long this will last? From what the Secretary of Defense said today, it sounds like it will last until President Trump says it's over.
Yeah, Reid, Secretary Hegseth earlier today said it could be 3 weeks, said it could be 8 weeks. What we've heard from President Trump as far as the timeline goes is that their initial projection was that this operation would last 4 to 5 weeks. But he has repeatedly said that the U.S. has the capability to go much longer. Now, while the White House is still kind of working on the best messaging on why they started this war with Iran, as CBS News polling has found, a majority of Americans aren't really convinced on what the end goals exactly are. The administration is referring to 4 points: destroying Iran's missile capabilities, annihilating its navy, preventing them from developing nuclear weapons, and ensuring they do not support terrorist groups in the region. The briefing we saw today, the Pentagon signaled the U.S. is advancing on some of those goals, especially when it comes to Iran's navy, but no one in the White House is setting a clear end date as of now on when this operation will finish.
Well, we know that thousands of Americans are trapped in the Middle East while missiles blow up all around them. What are the efforts to try to get Americans out? Matt Gutman talked about it a little bit, but is there anything more specific, more concrete for somebody who might be watching us streaming live in the palm of their hand and needing some answers?
Yeah, the State Department put out that call on Monday for Americans to leave 14 countries in the Middle East, and since then has launched a 24/7 task force and hotline to assist Americans abroad with security guidance and travel assistance. They and the White House say they are facilitating charter flights from at least 4 of those countries, and the State Department said today that 17,500 Americans have been able to leave the region since the start of the war. A White House official says, though, that they're not publicizing when any flights take off or any details on those flights out of safety concerns that Iran could strike those flights coming out of the region. But this has been a challenge to evacuate, as one source says that about 1 million Americans reside in the Middle East. We've heard from those that have called in or heard from briefings from the State Department that there are frustrations that they did not lay out a clear evacuation plan and did not convey details that they can then tell their constituents. We know that one governor, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, a Democrat, sent a letter to Secretary Rubio essentially calling on him to do more and to look at clearly conveying details on how Americans can get on chartered commercial flights or military flights. Asked yesterday about getting Americans out, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Capitol Hill that one challenge they are facing is airspace closures in these countries in the Middle East or airports that have been hit in strikes, and signaled that could cause full evacuation to take more time than preferred.
It's so sobering to think that they are being told that being in a plane to get out makes you vulnerable. Aaron Navarro, thank you so much. Most Americans feel the Trump administration really hasn't clearly explained U.S. goals in the conflict with Iran, and most are feeling that the longer the conflict could last, the more they disapprove. So let's go live to CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, you've got your finger on the pulse of how Americans are feeling about this. What's driving these sentiments?
Hey there, Reid. Let me show you this. Start with what you mentioned there at the top, which is, do people think that the administration has clearly explained the goals? We found in our poll yesterday, no, 6 in 10 say they don't think that they've done that yet. So what I did was I asked people, what do you think the administration's goals are yourself? And you see a list here. A lot of folks think it is to change Iran's leadership. A lot of think it is to stop Iran's military capabilities, prevent Iran from producing nuclear weapons. But the other part of this is how long folks think the conflict will last, and that's really important. So I'm going to show you this, which is, you see this distribution here, a quarter think days or weeks, but you get more thinking it might be months or even some who think years. In this group, who say they're not sure. The important part of that, Reed, is this, and you mentioned this at the top, so I'm going to show you those numbers. As people believe that it goes to months or years, you see these numbers for disapproving of the action go higher, Reed.
I've been watching sort of a trickle of members of Congress come out of private briefings saying that the U.S. was not facing an imminent attack. So what are Americans thinking about whether President Trump needs those members of Congress for approval to go forward?
Well, the short answer to that is about 7 in 10 say yes, that it needs approval from Congress. Now, that's not atypical. When we talk about military conflicts, if you look back through polling across years, you very often see a majority of Americans saying they think a president needs congressional approval. So that dynamic in that sense is not new, and it certainly is the case here with this one, Reed.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you for that.